Oh man, exciting day. This is my house under construction and we just started installing the siding today. On today's video, we're gonna get into all the nerdy details about this, but this is a James Hardie fiber cement we're installing here. This is actually their COLORPLUS, and we're gonna talk about install best practices. We're gonna talk about nailing patterns and butt joints and caulking and all kinds of very specific details. Today's video is sponsored by James Hardie. Let's get going. Guys, I've been so excited to see this happen. If you watched my last video, we spent a lot of time prepping for this install, so there's been a lot of thought long before we started installing. But what you're seeing right here, Chewy's got in his hands this board that has some plastic film on it. This isn't the typical James Hardie that I've installed in the past, or that you've probably seen. I've been installing that for 20 plus years. It has that kind of yellowish green primer on there. No, this is pre-painted. This comes from the factory like this. This is called COLORPLUS. And that means that I've got a factory finish on this house and I don't have the painters coming to the job a week or 2 or 6 months later. When these carpenters are done, my house is finished. Beautiful, beautiful end product. Now let's talk for a minute about why you might want this pre-painted Hardie. And in a minute, we'll get into all the details of the install as well. But a big reason is for maybe some of the northern builders watching this, where when I was a northern builder, I used to build houses in Washington, D.C. We'd complete houses in February that would have this huge winter punch list. And in fact, if the customer closed on their mortgage in February, we'd have to escrow money to pay for the things that were being done in the spring. There'd be like $10,000, $15,000 that we'd have to wait to get paid on until those items were done. Exterior paint, landscape, all kinds of things that couldn't be done in the cold winter time. So if you're a northern builder, you can basically install this in just about any weather, any temperature. You're just nailing. You might have to wait until a slightly warmer day to do the caulking, but with that Quad Max we're using, it guns out to like 0 degrees or something crazy low. So really, we could be doing this in Minnesota in January. The thing I like about this though, as a Texas builder, is that when these guys are done, I don't have to worry about painting. And in Texas, there's a lot of days that are not real conducive to getting a good paint job. It's over 100 degrees out, or it's raining, or it's super high humidity. Plus, we've got that issue of the painter up on the ladder. He's reaching out with his spray gun, he's spraying over there. Well, this right in front of him is gonna be great. We're gonna get good mill coverage, good thickness here, but over there, it's gonna be not as good, which means I might see streaks in my paint. I might have to go back and touch up, all those things. When this is done at the factory, they're baking it on under perfect conditions. It's kind of like, would you rather have BMW paint your car in the factory, or would you rather pay a painter to paint your car in the driveway? Of course, you're gonna get a better finish from the factory. 15-year warranty on the paint job, and then your siding, all your James Hardie products actually have a 30-year non-prorated warranty. Now let's talk about the actual products I'm using here. This is a 6 1/4 inch Hardie, and then when I'm done, it's gonna yield a 5-inch profile. I much prefer the smooth. Of course, that's gonna be everybody's preference, but I don't mind the smooth. I'm not trying to look like wood. I'm okay with people knowing this is a a non-wood product. I just prefer the smooth much better than the cedar mill or the stamped grain pattern, but of course that's totally up to the individual. Now when we pre-paint this, or if we don't pre-paint it, a couple things I want to mention. Butt joints, we never want to caulk these butt joints. These butt joints are critical to just have moderate contact, meaning light contact, not jammed together or friction fitted in. And when they install those, they're going to do what they call moderate contact. That means they're going to bump together, they're not going to shove them together, and they're certainly not going to leave a gap on there. When we do that, we've got a factory painted edge on the side, and you'll also notice the carpenter slipped one of these in there. This is a flashing from Tamlin, and this happens to be pre-painted as well to match that white color. So if you could see it, or if there was a gap, it would be white behind there, although frankly there's really not much of one. This is kind of a neat product. This is actually their PF6. It's sized to my exact siding size. That's at 6 1/4 inch total siding. It's painted the Arctic white, so it's gonna match. And when they slip that in, it's got a little hanger on the top there. That's where it's going to hang on the one side, then they're going to slip the other one in. The circle that's on here is so the carpenters could actually take a big bundle of these and have them hanging from their tool belt, and they could grab one as needed. But these are awesome because now if there's any water that gets back there, it's going to kick it onto that next lap. Remember, this is 6 1/4 but only 5-inch exposure, so that means I've got the 1 1/4 of this top is concealed back here with this 5-inch exposure, and this is shingling onto the next layer. That also allows you then to hide your nails. You saw the guys nailing this off. The next layer is going to cover those nails. Now, nail placement is critical. I'll get into that in a little bit, but let's finish talking about these butt joints. We don't want to caulk these. If we caulked them, number one, we'd have to always re-caulk them, and number two, you'd probably also pretty quickly notice the color difference between the caulking and the siding. So James Hardie does not require that. In fact, they tell you do not do it. Don't caulk those joints. Now, where are we going to caulk on this install, though? We're going to do that right here. Where our siding is butting our trim, that's where we're going to do it. Now, this is a corner of my house, and I didn't do the traditional corner board. A lot of times you'll see 2 1x4s coming together on the corner. What I did was I had the guys install it on one face. This is the side of my house, and we overhung by about 1 inch on this back side. So then when I butt that siding on there, we still have room to caulk it, and we still have a little bit of a face showing. And again, they left that 1/8 inch gap on this, or actually, no, I guess I haven't talked about that. Where our siding is butting trim, we're gonna leave an 1/8 inch gap in that location. My guys actually are using a Bondo spatula, which is about the thickness that we're looking for. So we slide that in there, we'll butt the siding on there, and then we'll pull that out later, and then we're good to go. That's the correct size. So then later we can come and put a caulk joint on there. Now let's talk about the caulking for a minute. This is OSI's Quad Max, and they're a partner with James Hardie, such that you can go on the OSI website and order specific Quad Max in any one of the colors that James Hardie's ColorPlus system is made in. So I went in there and inputted the white and the gray that I'm using, and then I got the caulking to my job, which was the exact color I was looking for. Now when we caulked this corner, we're looking for a big fat bead of caulk. We actually want a 3/8 bead of caulking. That's from really both manufacturers. The reason being is when we have a fatter bead, that gives us more material to resist the UV damage, the oxidation, the water penetration, all those things. If we had a real tiny bead, we wouldn't be able to do that. You'll also notice that the guys did not tool this. When we ran the caulking bead, we struck that down with the tip of the caulking gun, cut at a 45-degree angle, and then left it. There was no wipe your finger down. This is a solvent-based caulk. You don't want to wipe it. That's number one, not good for you, and number two, it's not going to leave the proper joint size and the proper material on there. So just plan on cutting that, striking it, and you're good to go. Okay, let's pick up the details as the guys continue up the wall. All right, y'all, it's the next day. The guys made great progress. We actually finished this entire wall in one day from that starter strip. We're basically stopping at the soffit here because I need a vented soffit detail. I'll share that to you when I actually have it in hand. But we started on the other side of the house, and I thought I'd show you a couple of details while we're in process so you can see that. First off, I want to mention this gecko gauge you can see the guys using here. Really handy tool. All that's doing is he's got that set at 5-inch exposure so that when he pops his next course on there, that gauge is gauging it off perfectly. And it leaves a place to hold so that when he's about ready to nail it off, he's good to go. Let's talk about nailing patterns for a minute. This is a 6 1/4 inch board, 5-inch exposure, which means the first 1 1/4 is getting blinded back there. This is blind nailing. We really want to be cautious about nail placement. We want that nail to go about 1 inch down from the top. If you high nail this, you're going to feel these chatter. They're not going to be tight up against, whereas these guys are, Chewy's nailing it in the perfect spot. About 1 inch down is what you want. There's a couple ways you can do it, but you mind if I see your gun real quick, Chewy? Check this out. Our Hardie rep told us about this. This is just a zip tie that we've clipped off So this distance is about 1 inch, and all it's doing is giving us a visual gauge. Some other people make some nose pieces you can buy that's a replacement that you could actually hang on the top of the siding and know you're 1 inch. This works really well too. Good tip from Dave, our Hardie rep. That's gonna give us that visual indicator of them about 1 inch down on every one. Thanks, Chewy. You're gonna notice we've got flashings that I had custom bent over all of my penetrations. This happens to be a PVC block, not Hardie, but it's real important not to put Hardie on a level surface. But like on those window heads over there, we've got a flashing over top of that 5/4 trim so that we don't have water sitting on it. It's gonna kick that water out. When we get up to this window head, we'll do the same thing across here. Oh man, look how good my front porch is looking. The guys actually knocked this out in 1 day. Now, as you can see, this is not the pre-painted ColorPlus that I used in the rest of the house. This is actually a primed product, and actually varied from the standard James Hardie to the Artisan collection. This is part of the Aspire, and this is their Artisan shiplap. So this is the primed porch, and we'll end up painting this in a white color to match the body of the house. But let me show you what this looks like. Here's the profile on a standard board. You've got a flat face, and then you've got kind of a shiplap profile. And this could be run horizontally or vertically. And here's what they kind of look like when they come together. You can see it's got a tongue and groove here. And when you install this, the guys did a real nice job of putting a nice bead of Quad Max in there, and it's hidden so you're not seeing it. And because we ran it vertically, that caulk is gonna make sure that any water that gets in there is gonna fall down and not get behind there, especially in a vertical type situation. But because I ran this in a porch, I'm fully covered. I'm not super worried about that. And again, I have a rain screen like I had in the rest of the house, but instead of doing just the vertical rain screen, I ended up running this horizontal bar on the rain screen so that we could nail it off vertically. And you can see here, we started in that corner, we're working our way this direction. We'll end up with almost a perfect full board here, but I'm not quite done with inspections, and that's why I left this off. And speaking of which, that soffit is also not from James Hardie, that's from Delta Millworks. That's an Akoya board that has a really pretty finish on it from Akoya and is pre-finished. So that kind of whitish color that you're seeing on there, that's the final color. And I do want to mention a little detail. We did a venting in this porch roof as well, because my attic doesn't have venting above there. I have no air hawks or other things. So what you can see is we ripped a piece of the corrugated plastic, and that's CoreVent's product, and we ripped that down to the thickness of my board, and the bug screen portion is down, and I've got one here and I've got one there, and it reads as just a black line, but what that's going to do is allow a little bit of airflow into there and a little bit of air out of there. So if there's any moisture accumulation in that closed soffit area, it's going to be able to get out. The guys did a really nice job. Now I need to finish inspections, then I'll put that last board on there. We'll finish this up, and then we'll get it all painted. In my mounting blocks, I had pre-made. My carpenters did a real nice job on those mounting blocks. I really like how those turned out. So I've got sconces on either side. I've got electrical outlets on the porch here, and then a second one over here. And then I've got my Aqua hose bib that I made a video about over there. And while we're on the porch, one last thing I did want to mention, we used all ColorPlus on this trim around the beam that I had coming through. And then I also used ColorPlus in the soffit areas, and the guys did a real nice job of that. Now I could have used a pre-vented Hardie soffit, but I like that real smooth, unvented soffit. And what I did was I picked up locally this aluminum piece that I've used a bunch here in Texas that I ran at the edge of my soffit. And in most of the house, I wasn't worried about seeing any light or seeing what's back there. But in this front porch area, I actually had the guys use a little black spray paint on the framing members. So as you look up there, which is really hard on an overcast day like today to see anything, but if it was a sunnier day, you might be able to see into that framing just a hair. We ran just a cheap black spray paint on that, so that's all disappearing. Guys, we're really close to being done. Let's finish up the install, and we'll come back and tell you a couple last details, and we'll finish up the video. All right, one thing I want to mention on ColorPlus is when you order ColorPlus, you're going to get this touch-up kit. and it's gonna match the color of either your siding or your trim or whatever you're ordering in ColorPlus. This one happens to be paper white, but this is a pretty cool little kit. This is the color matched paint, and this happens to be night gray or asteroid gray like I used here. And there's two pieces that come with it that are quite cool. This one has a little roller ball in it, and this is a nail touch-up kit. So what we're gonna do is be able to actually touch up our nail holes. So for instance, this nail hole right here, Chewy, when he installed this piece of 1x4 here, he's left the plastic on, he's nailed it, and then he's pulling out this dauber right here and dabbing that on, that paint on right there to cover over that nail. And then he's pulling the plastic so that when he's done, totally complete, totally finished, and a beautiful job. I love it. There's no caulking involved. We're just gonna nail daub that. Now on the other hand, if we had a piece of trim that had a cut edge that was showing, there's also this. This is their shoe polish dauber, for lack of a better word. And the paint will come out here. We're gonna fill this with paint, and then we can daub this wherever we needed to. If there was a cut edge that was gonna show on a piece of trim, maybe a fascia, that sort of thing. Very cool kit from James Hardie. Now keep in mind, this is only for cut ends, for things like that. We're not painting big sections. If you get a bigger scratch or a bigger nick that's larger than, let's say, a dime, you want to cut that board off and go to a new section. But this is going to handle all of your cut ends on trim, nail daubers for the heads, things like that. Man, doesn't the house look fantastic? I am absolutely thrilled. I mean, look at this back facade on my house. I did a little bit of brick on the front to match the neighborhood, but basically all three sides plus my second story are all the James Hardie. And man, I love the paper white. It's got a kind of a black and white theme with my black roof that just got put on. My awnings, all those details, really, really crisp. Big thanks to Madeira Framing, who just absolutely nailed the details for me. We've got a little bit more caulking to do. I'm gonna actually bring my painter back to do a few of the caulking areas rather than having the framing crew do this. Now, if this was a residing job, you'd have them do that caulking. But one nice thing about the rain screen that I did was that caulking really is optional. I always think of my cladding as my UV barrier for the house, but ultimately all the waterproofing, all the air barrier, that's all behind that area. So the caulking for me is purely aesthetics, and that's the reason why I use that rain screen, if you saw that previous video. But man, the details, absolutely love it. The soffits turned out great. I love the asteroid gray. You'll notice the white sills on the second story. I still need to paint those. Remember, those are made from that Versatech material. So I still need to paint those gray to match everything. But overall, absolutely thrilled with how the house came out. Now, I do want to make a quick mention. As I've put several pictures of my house on Instagram during construction, I've had several other builders who are fans of composite siding say, hey Matt, why didn't you do that? I know there are builders who like that, but in my case, I've had a real affinity for James Hardie's fiber cement for going on 20 years now. I started using it 20 years ago when I was building in Portland, Oregon, and it's got a multiple decade track record of good success for me. And my own personal house, when I remodeled almost 16 years ago now, I'm still on my original paint job on that James Hardie. It still looks fantastic. Down here in Texas, where we get blazing sun and it was -5 a couple weeks ago, my siding looks fantastic. And I was around for the composite wood siding failures in the late 90s, early 2000s in the Pacific Northwest. I saw houses that had mushrooms growing out of them. So for me, it's just not a smart choice to do an OSB painted siding on the outside of the house. On the other hand, fiber cement, I mean, this is a really impervious house. And the fact that I went with the ColorPlus means that I've got a paint job that's gonna way far outlast the paint job with a site painted finish. Guys, big thanks to James Hardie for sponsoring today's video. I appreciate you sticking around for the details. When you get these details right and nail it, the house absolutely sings, doesn't it? I appreciate your support, guys. If you're not currently a subscriber, hit that subscribe button below. We've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow me on Twitter or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show. Hey guys, when you watch these videos, it looks like I've got just a cell phone hanging out here on the job. But in fact, I've got a whole team of people that help me shoot and edit and organize and do all the things that it takes to get these videos out twice a week. And one of my awesome team members, Andrew, is unfortunately leaving the team. And I just wanted to say a big thanks to you, Andrew, for all of your love and care and support for me in the time that you've worked on my team. I'm gonna miss the heck out of you, buddy. Wish you the best in everything, and maybe our paths will cross again one day. But in the meantime, all the best to you, my friend.